Hey, welcome to the Sustainiacs, everybody. I am Michael Vincent, this Sustainiac every week, and I've got another one in the show. I've got this. So this is a the Prince. He's a recipient of the Prince's Award for Innovative Philanthropy, right? Founder of the Plasticity Forum, founder of Waterfalling and Rising Festivals in Cambodia, which I was just reading about, which is really cool. Kids Ocean Day in Hong Kong, the Great Art Project in Hong Kong, founder of the Ocean Recovery Alliance, which is one of the first NGOs to be working with the United Nations Environment and the World Bank. And did I mention that he's also in the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame? I don't know. You didn't have enough time to like scale Mount Everest naked or something like that, I guess, to put that on your resume. But it's Dud Woodring, and he is the founder and the managing director of the Ocean Recovery Alliance. And I'm so glad you're on here, brother. Welcome to the show, man.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me. It's good. Good morning in Hong Kong here. It's 9 a.m.
Yeah, we're actually, this is
tomorrow.
the first show where
So
we've actually gone
I
into
can
the
tell you
future to
what will
talk to a
happen
guest.
tomorrow if you want to know.
That's what I'm saying.
'Cause-
This is the first show we went into the future. So what's going on in the future? What's going on
well,
Thursday? It's Wednesday night here.
beautiful day. People recovered from Halloween. It's not hot and humid here as it usually is for 6 months of the year. So it's perfect weather. It's the best season in Hong Kong. It's October, November, December.
Really? Okay. Wow. I'll
Yeah,
remember that when I come visit. I
California
was going
weather.
to ask you that if Halloween is a big deal there. It is, though, huh?
Well, it is just kind of because it's a Western influence, but the locals really get into it now, and the kids get into it. It's typical consumer holiday, I guess you could say. Many countries do it, and a lot of the bars and restaurants want to, get your excitement going. So there's an area where there's a whole bunch of restaurants and bars where people go and dress up, and it's mayhem. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
does happen there.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, I didn't know. I thought maybe they would. I've my business partners from South Africa. He comes over. He's like, I don't get Halloween. I don't understand what you guys are doing. Of course, he's been partying for days because South Africa just won the World Cup in rugby. So he's
That's right.
just, he's
They
just
have
beside
something to
himself, happy.
celebrate.
Yeah, yeah. They beat the All Blacks for the championship too by 1 point, which is that's a legit win right there for
Right,
sure.
and they won last time, so they've two-time world champion. That's pretty uncommon.
Yeah,
Two in a
it's a
row.
back to back. It's a
Yeah.
back to back. Crazy. It's cool, and it's every 4 years. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but didn't I meet you at like the world's largest monk festival in India at one time? Did I see
Well,
you there?
maybe if you were in a robe, I'm not sure because there weren't too many foreigners there.
I was undercover. It was an undercover podcast, is what it was. Now, you were telling me before the show, are you an activist or are you an actionist? Well, actually, I shouldn't even say that because I just learned that term and I apologize. But are you an activist? Should we qualify you as an activist?
No, we should not because the problem with the word activist is immediately gets people on the defensive, especially the stakeholders that you're trying to work with, particularly in other countries where NGOs, sometimes non-government organizations, sometimes have a bad name because there are activists. Activist kind of means connotates stirring up the beehive or going after a company or making them look bad and chasing them. And so therefore you can't get in the room, you can't get a meeting, you can't get someone to listen to you properly. And we had that issue a lot because in Asia, when someone sees our name, Ocean Recovery Alliance, they think, oh, you're like those other guys and those other guys who chase whales or cause problems in protests or whatever it is. And we're not like that at all. I have a business degree, mass MBA, and we come at things with real solution sets that are meant for local, regional, or global environments. And so the word I used when at the Monk Festival, where I was speaking in Ladakh a few years ago, they said, Doug, we're going to introduce you as an activist. And I said, well, I'm not an activist. That's not what we do. We're actionists. We just do stuff. We often don't ask for approval, but we do it in a good way that everyone gets engaged and excited and wants to work with us. Sometimes if you do ask for approval in some of these countries, it takes forever and they don't know what you're trying to do. But if you do it in a in a positive manner, and you're engaging people and everyone's enjoying it and learning and being part of it. This is what we did in Cambodia. We went in very discreetly, and all of a sudden, within 2 years, the government is calling us up and wanting to support all the programs we're doing because they couldn't understand how we did it so effectively and unobtrusively. But that's the action. You got to create the proof to then have a bigger discussion with them and show them that it actually can work when
So
sometimes
how
they
do you
wouldn't believe
get
you
that?
otherwise.
How do you get that? How do you get that into there? And we got to get into the Ocean Recovery Alliance and what you guys are doing there. But and this is what you're doing there. So how do you get into like a Cambodia, or how would I even
So
get into Tennessee and get the ground roots? Because you're talking about the ground roots kind of happening, right?
right. Yeah,
Um,
this is the ground root. So we call it, I call it creative surprise. We like to use all different means and methods, and sometimes it's art, sometimes it's sculpture, sometimes it's plays. We have a play called Uncle Roo, the Recycling Rooster, now in 8 languages. We have a play that the Cambodians, I got them to perform at this giant 5,000 person UN event in Malaysia right before COVID. We've got a group in Kenya now. We're building one in Indonesia. And the reason it's with a rooster is because every village in the world has a rooster, virtually. And we use what we call eco repetition. Eco repetition is the sound of nature making a noise every day. Could be a dog, but most people don't like to hear dog barking all the time and they shut them up. But no one shuts up the rooster, and the rooster crows every morning at 4:30 or 5. So in the play, if the rooster is the hero and he's saving the village from pollution, from bad water, from sick animals, all because of plastic pollution in that area, he comes to the rescue and says, "You've got to recycle better. You've got to sort your things, reduce this. Do not burn it. Do not throw it in the water." But the whole time he's crowing, "Cuckoo, cuckoo!"
yeah,
More
that's
inspiring he
very
is with
cool.
the crow. Then, when the kids hear it a week later, the day later, a month later, they remember and they go to their mom and they say, "Mom, the rooster's crowing. We got to recycle." So we use nature as the transponder, reminding messenger after this performance. It's pretty amazing.
That is very cool, and I love the way you use that. That rooster is really a universal symbol. It's everywhere. I
Everywhere.
mean, from if you fly into Saint Lucia, they're running around in the airport, and
Yeah.
they're also in the villages in Cambodia. They're literally everywhere. You're absolutely right, and that is very cool. It's almost like that Pavlovian type of thing. Rooster crowed up,
Yeah. And
recycle,
I've never
right?
seen anyone do anything like this. So we're quite happy about it. And I'm going to Africa in a couple of weeks for this UN plastic treaty discussion. And I'm actually going to have a workshop with our team in Kenya and all the other sort of African nation participants who we can find to inspire them about creating their own Uncle Roo play in their own village and country so we can propagate it. Because once there's a performing group, you can then tour that and travel it to the next village, to the next school, to the next event. So you asked how we do
That's
this. The
tremendous.
creative surprise is all about kind of engaging different stakeholders in a way that gets them excited. They see the PR. If it's a corporate, the employees like it. If it's kids, the kids love it. The press comes, and people don't necessarily know what they're doing in it when they're in it, when they're in the actor and the issue and the topic. But then they like it, they love it, and they want more. And that's how you start the snowball rolling downhill and get them excited, and that's what we did in Cambodia. But you do need a local person who knows the ropes and knows who is trusted and sees the same vision that you have. And so usually we find those people and through my travels and connecting with people, and then most of our programs are all replicable anywhere in any country. You just need the right team, the right synergies with a couple people to say, "Oh, I can do that in my place, or I could do that with my company, I could do that in my municipality," and then we try to set the seed and get that moving. So
That's tremendous stuff, and I have to talk to you after the show as well because I got to introduce you to Oliver Nuds, our CEO at OPT, uh, Ocean Plastic Technology South Africa, which is the headquarters, and they own OPT USA, which I'm president of. But he'll
Great.
be at that conference as well, and
Oh, great.
they're doing amazing things with recycling and all throughout the KwaZulu Natal and South Africa, and they're branching out into other countries around Africa as well, doing some really amazing stuff, making and what they're doing here. And I wanted to ask you this: is once you set this up and it's going, how does it continue itself? What's the continuing? What's the catalyst that keeps it going? What's the secret sauce that keeps it going? Once you've got this, is it purely through the arts, or does it set up
Oh, yeah.
entrepreneurship? Is
Well,
it
no, it's not.
creating businesses out of it? What is that?
All of the above. It's not the arts is just one piece. I mean, we took a 12-meter tall whale called the skyscraper to Singapore. It had been originally built for Bruges, Europe, and made from plastic from Hawaii on the north shore of the Big Island. And it was made by an architect, and they made it for Europe, but then it would never had a plan after that. So I knew them, and I said, "Oh, I could bring this thing to Asia and go on an Asia tour with Whale." And so we made a slogan called "Have you breached the limit?" And it's all about plastic. And we set this up in front of the Sands Casino, 12-meter tall. It was there for 3 months. Every single person who walked by it took a picture of it, including the Prime Minister. So, it's getting a discussion going and getting people to look and wonder, where does it come from? Why is it there? What's the purpose? And then you can have discussions with universities and businesses and government officials. But we also were the first group in the world to create a plastic footprint methodology, much
Okay.
like carbon footprinting. We announced that at the Clinton Initiative in New York in 2010. So that was probably 10 years too early, because even though we've been using it, the world hasn't really been ready to do plastic footprinting, especially the companies, like they do with carbon or water. Now people
So
talk about
is that going
circular
along the
economy.
lines of like carbon credits, et cetera, and going
Well,
into
it's
monetary?
the precursor to a credit, because if you don't know what you have, you don't know what to credit. If you don't know what you have as a baseline, you don't know how to what you need to recycle or improve. So we're completely set up to go into the world of the plastic credits, because people need to know how much they need to offset or buy as a credit, if that's going to become a market, and it is becoming a market, um, slowly but surely. That's another topic. So we do big things. We also have an app called Global Alert. Lets you report trash hotspots anywhere in the world's waters. It's one of the only apps that allows that, and it's designed to work well with consumers and easy enough for a grandparent or an 8-year-old to use it. Photos and GPS, but it's also got enough data that the correct stakeholders can use it, which is government officials in a watershed, in a tourism ministry, a sewage supplies department, whatever it is, waterway caretaker. So that app was partly funded by the World Bank. It's in Spanish, English, and we just put it in Bahasa Indonesian. And we don't need a
And
lot of
so
people
what do
to
the
use
people
it.
do when you do this? How does that function, and what's the result of the function?
So what we've built is the platform, a bit like Waze for traffic. People report when there's a traffic incident. There's a log jam over there. There's a accident. There's a stoplight, whatever it is, speed trap. In our case, it's reporting trash hotspots. All you got to do is visually see that there's a lot of trash in or near the water. We don't care about it if it's in the city or in a desert. Not that we don't care, but that more likely is going to get captured or dealt with than if it's near the water. If it's near the water and gets in the water, it's gone, it's lost, because most people can't aren't working to try to get it out of the waters. So this is to protect the waterways. So it's a very good way to drive cleanups, because you can take 3 photos for every site and the GPS point. So when you have a cleanup next weekend, you can say, wow, okay, here's the strip of river or creek or the coastline. Here's where the damaged areas are with a lot of material. We need 10 people. We need maybe one truck. We need 50 bags, whatever it is. It lets people deploy a cleanup. But it also lets you take pictures after you do the cleanup. So the pins on the map can be green and can show government officials that, hey, we did something. But the tide might come back tomorrow. The wind might come, and or upstream they're not cleaning, and tomorrow it's dirty again. And that's fine. You report again, but this is a way to really focus people on these waterways. And if you think of, sorry, but if you think of plastic like cholesterol, you think of rivers like blood vessel. You think of the ocean as the heart. You want to stop the cholesterol going to the heart. Easiest way to do it is through the blood vessel. It's got two river banks, flows only one direction. And unfortunately, the world really hasn't focused on this as a stopgap for at least the flow of stuff coming out of countries yet. Only recently did the ocean world start talking about rivers and creeks.
Totally agree with you. That's what we're trying to do at OPT is prevent it from getting there in the first place. And I always liken it to, you go into the bath and you see that the water's on and it's overflowing. You don't run and get a bucket and start bailing. You turn the water off,
Right,
right?
right.
Right. I mean, we have people starting now to try and take it out of the ocean, but once it gets in the ocean and it's there that long, once you take it out of the ocean, there's not much you can do with it because that literally is garbage plastic that's coming out of the ocean when it's been there for a while. It's not worth much. And you haven't stopped it from coming back into the ocean. I'm with
Correct.
you. I don't think people, like, especially around here in
Haven't
the United States,
digested
they don't
that.
understand how rivers and streams in certain areas in the world are actually the waste management system for a lot of villages. It's how they get rid of their stuff, right?
That's right. It's either that or burning. So, and
Either
burning is
that or
something
burning.
else not talked about at all because once it's burned, you don't see it. So the real challenge here is to get, you asked about how do you keep these things going once they get moving. So the whole inspiration and reason we set up Global Alert is to inspire the creation and uh, installation of booms, nets, and catchment devices. They don't need to be big. They don't need to be super high tech. They can be a fishing net. Even a piece of bamboo across a still piece of water stops the surface flow. One of the main issues with recycling globally in the cities and in the rivers and just the whole issue with waste is people do not trust the system. Trust is the main thing that's broken. They don't know where the recycling goes. They don't know who does it. They don't trust it. Therefore, they won't spend time to sort it. The same thing is the problem with a dirty river. When you look at a dirty river and someone says, don't throw anything in the river, you say, well, everyone else threw it in the river, so why should I be different? It's like the broken windows theory. If you fix the windows and you paint the car trains and get the graffiti off, people all of a sudden become proud of their city, become proud of their town, and don't want to be the next one to be caught polluting or breaking the window. So if you just clean the surface water of a river or a creek and it looks clean, it might still have some sewage, you immediately change the trust factor in that community. And now you can start focusing on where did this stuff come from upstream? Why is it there? Can we prevent it? Can you recycle it? But the people who live on the clean part, they say, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to keep cleaning it. So when we did this in Cambodia, the monk, go back to the monk said, used to say to people, don't throw your garbage bag in the water. They didn't believe him because it was completely dirty. When we cleaned it
Yeah.
20, 25 tons later, he was so smiling. He said, now I can tell. He didn't even know the broken windows theory, but this is exactly what was happening. He said, now I can tell people if they throw the garbage bag in the water, they will have bad karma. And in Asia, that it means
Yeah.
a lot in the Buddhist
That's
world.
huge.
And they listened to that because now it's clean. And it worked. And within 10 days, the government actually put a fine on people if they put their garbage bag on the river side of the road because it might fall in the water. But they would never have done that if we didn't clean the river. So these little things. So going back to sustainability and how you keep these going. You've got to prove it works, prove it makes a difference, and then we all need money and funding to keep it going. That's the way of the world. There's no free lunch to just pollute your way through your business. So adopt a river, adopt a creek, adopt a boom, adopt three guys who are going to clean from the boom every week, and at least even taking it to landfill. Some people have this utopian idea that everything can be snap your finger and it's going to go to recycling. That is not the case because most countries in the world don't have any recycling. But if you get it out of the water and you put it in a landfill and it's not getting burned and it's contained, that's 90,000 times better than what it already is right now in their water, polluting it, bad health, bad fishing, bad tourism. So you got to go step by step. Once you start collecting it and you get the volume, then you start thinking, maybe we could make some recycling from this, or maybe we could make some energy from it, or maybe we could prevent it, or, whatever that next step is.
Yeah. So you said there's a ton of stuff to unpack there, but I hear you is it's that transparency and getting the trust back. Because right now, wish cycling is actually a term,
Yes.
and it's very
Bad
very
term.
dangerous.
Sad.
It yeah, it's sad, but it's also there because for a reason, right? I mean, these things happen because it's true,
Right.
but it's that transparency and getting that trust. And I love what you also said. It's going to a landfill, but that's a 90,000 or a million times better than just leaving it the way it was before. We've got to make steps forward, and there's so many people who won't make those steps because
Yes.
they're not perfect
They,
steps.
they, they
And
think
you
it's
got to,
not the best thing and they just stop but they have no
yeah,
solution in the meantime. So,
exactly,
that's a big challenge. If you look at, I believe that plastic pollution is much more difficult to solve than climate change. It doesn't mean that it's more dangerous, but it's just super hard with all the types of plastic and the melting points, the colors. So on a daily basis, climate change might affect X number of people in a hot place, a dry place, a storm, a fire, but plastic pollution and bad water affects people to the tune of 2 billion people every day, and that's more than
yeah,
climate change right now. So, and plastic is, imagine this, every single plastic that's a piece of garbage left someone's hand before it became garbage. That means
yeah,
we're
yeah.
one
No,
hand away, but there's no infrastructure for people to do the right thing,
so
and the
that's
trust is
that's
not
what I
there.
wanted to get to with you as well. Is the infrastructure problem? Now, I've got 35 years in logistics, right? I've done everything except run a railroad. And I contend that logistics and the supply chains and the internet and the were was at least an enabler in allowing us to get to the point where we are right now with this linear extract, use, throw away, and forget about it type of industry. Plus,
Right.
we've all heard the thing, back in the 20s when planned obsolescence became a thing with the light bulb and all this other kinds of million other things. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but logistics and the supply chain of infrastructure of it are the solution as well, right? I mean, there's got to
Absolutely.
be a way to get it
Absolutely.
circularized.
So that's exactly, interesting that you say this. I was at the UN plastic treaty discussions in Paris in June, and I applied to be a speaker on this topic in at that time, and there was many, many, many people applied to just a few side events that they allow at this 5-day conference, and I didn't get a spot. Literally 2 days ago, by accident, I saw an email, and my name is on the list as a speaker on one of the few panels, and I
Oh
hadn't
wow.
even applied for it. And it's exactly about this topic: trade and certified, verified recycling to allow a global circular economy. Many people talk about circular economy. We all want it. We all agree with it. But no one even really digests what does that mean? Does it mean it's got to be circular only within Hong Kong, or circular only within California, or circular only within the US, or global? And with plastic, you need economies of scale, and there's would be enormous inefficiencies if you forced every single country to be their own circular system. They don't even have the manufacturing to absorb the material that they would recycle in the first place if they did it, nor do they have the capacity. So without this infrastructure and the supply chain, unfortunately now the word plastic is synonymous with trash, and people just believe that you're shipping trash around the world and dumping it. That is not the case at all. It happened a bit. There were some rogue traders, and people were not paying attention 5 years ago, but they're completely paying attention now. But many governments have just closed their doors because they got bad press, from the activists. And so now you've got all of the basically one-way trade, which is I call it carpet bombing, sadly. But imagine all the products from the brands going to every single country, 180 countries for your product and packaging. And okay, it might be recyclable in California or France or Europe, but it's not recyclable in Fiji or Kenya or Brazil
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Cambodia because they have no facilities. So you can't allow the trade to go in and then not allow these groups to be in the supply chain of at least semi processing, sorting, cleaning, grinding, and get it to the next bigger processor who does it legitimately well, but he's in another country. And this is a big failure of the discussion of the treaty talks so far because no one's even focused on this. And it's the biggest missing opportunity for scaled recovery and remediation of what's out there and what's going to keep coming.
Right. They just look at those. I couldn't agree with you more. There has to be a solid supply chain setup, and it's going to take a lot of countries to rethink how they're doing things, and um, it changes the haves and have-nots around the world. Right. I mean, that's kind of one of the hurdles that are there, and I'm not saying it in a nefarious way or an evil way or anything like that. It's just taking away legacy infrastructures and certain things like that negatively impact different cultures and different economies. We got to be cognizant of that, right? As we try and
We do.
rearrange these
We do, but
economies, right?
ironically, the developing world is the best opportunity we have. It's the developed
Sure.
world that has all the problems. The developed
Yes,
world has
well, that's what I'm saying. But they also have all the control, right?
they have control, but they have the ingrained systems. They're outdated. They're old fashioned. They're not set up for plastic. And what we're doing in Cambodia and Lombok in Indonesia, our harvest plastic program, when you go into a rural village that has zero to begin with, they have no waste management. They only dump it in the river, as you said, in the lake, or they burn it. When you go to someone like that with a solution, all of a sudden people are super excited, very engaged. They'll do anything you say, and they see the results right away. And you can infect people in a really good way. So what we're doing with Harvest Plastic is only collecting plastic from the household, no other waste. That can be done, differently, but there's no food waste in it, and there's no paper, glass, metal, which means you have clean feedstock, clean plastic, which is dry and easily
Mm.
sortable by hand or anyone who then wants to make use of it. The entrepreneurs, the innovators, someone's got a new machine, a new compressor. Once you get that into a supply chain and a system of the recycling, it you let it go because it's fine. It will go to the aggregators. It will get put into bigger batches, and it will get processed. The
But
challenge
it's
is
because
getting
it's
it
because you're
from
getting
the source.
those smaller streams, because you're getting those smaller, cleaner streams of specific types of
Exactly.
plastics at source, right?
Right.
And
That's
then
exactly the
aggregating it,
magic thing.
not aggregating everything and then trying to sort it, right?
Exactly. So a great analogy, I love this one, is recycling is like trying to reconstitute an omelet. If you make an omelet with eggs, milk, cheese, ham, peppers, and mushroom, and you say,
I'll
Doug,
take
that's a
two.
nice looking omelet. Please put them all back in the original format. I don't like an omelet. I want them all separate. That's exactly what recycling is. That's how hard it is, at least
It
for
is. It was
plastic and
explained to
food.
me. Luke Haverhall's a brilliant chemist. He runs a company called Natural Fiber Welding. Right. He said it's entropy. You can't overcome the basic laws of thermodynamics and entropy in certain plastics, and that's just the way it is. So it's got to be mindful from the product design and supply chain design all the way through in order to really affect the where you and I would like to see us to be able to get to eventually as a circular plastics economy, right? Unless we change that product design to be able to be either reused or repurposed or recycled at the end of life, we're in trouble, right?
Well, there's a lot of, that's a challenge because there's so many products and packages and standardization of packaging definitely has to happen or should happen to some extent so that it's easier to at
Yeah.
least get the same types of things. But again, it's the aggregation from 8 billion people who have it, the carpet bombing. How do you get it from all those people in the most effective way that's clean and uncontaminated, that therefore the costs are lower? But in reality, every single type of plastic can be recycled, every single type, if you have economies of scale on that thing. So not many
Yes.
people go and pick up styrofoam lunch boxes or styrofoam cups because they're just too lightweight and they're too dispersed, and good luck. But technically, styrofoam is very valuable if you can amass it and put it in the right,
Oh,
spot.
oh yeah.
So
If you got it, Doug, I'll help you sell it because you can make
yeah,
some money on recycled foam. Absolutely.
yeah. So the point I was going to make though is that we our plasticity forum, which you referenced at the beginning, it was
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of the
yeah.
only events in the world that truly focused only on solutions for second life plastic. Second life plastic means anything that is finish its first life as a package or a product, but how do we make it valuable? Because if there's not value, then it goes to burning and dumping. How do you make it valuable in some way? It might not be recycled as another bottle. It might not be recycled as a tennis shoe, but it's perfectly acceptable to become a table, which it might last for another 50 years. And now there's ways that you could blend mixed dirty plastic into concrete aggregate, asphalt aggregate, gasification, energy, any of those things. Again, it's not a utopian world. You can't go from 0 to 100 in 1 second for everything,
No.
but you've got to allow all these other things to happen because we do need packaging for food waste. We do need for food storage and the reduction of food waste because things go rotten very quickly if you don't have certain packaging and dry capacities, etc. So we're a long way from getting rid of plastic. And if we're not going to address it head on as adults and how to use recycling, the discouraging thing, like you said, it's wish cycling. At the UN event in Paris, the first thing they said is we can't recycle our way out of this problem. But if you kill the opportunity psychologically to even think of recycling from the first statement of such an event, we have a real problem because all of the other measures they're talking about are punitive and they're futuristic. Oh, tax this, ban this, EPR this, extended producer responsibility, avoid this, and that's all fine, but it will only amount to a tiny percentage of the inventory of what's still out there. And there's no one's talking about the solutions of how to create this supply chain, how to create legitimate circular economy trade between countries that have efficiencies with one another, and that you can pull all this stuff out from the South, the global South, and give it to the brands of the global North who are all demanding it because they want recycled content in all their products, but they can't get their fingers on any of it because there's no
Okay.
supply chain.
Yeah, okay, and I
Sorry,
agree with you
I
100%. I
spin
agree with you
around
100% on
quickly.
everything that you said. I think you and I are like kindred spirits because I can hear some implications there that we probably shouldn't go down because we start to get a little political or something. But I think you and I are really kindred spirits on this. Let me pose this to you. I was doing some research on some stuff, and I found on the Visual Capitalist where they contradict. Well, they don't contradict themselves, but they answered their own question, and they answered it years ago. They put up they had a map. You know, the Visual Capitalist. They had a map, and they do these cool maps, and they had a list of the worst ocean polluter offenders countries in the world, and guess where they are? In your neck of the woods where you're at right now, right? The Indo-Pacific area, right? And then it showed they had one like from 5 years ago that I was looking at because I was like, I know why this is, and I can tell you why it is because we all send our stuff there to is one of them. And you look at it, and there it is. Where does Europe, the UK, the United States, where does everybody send their trash the most of? Right there, the exact same place where you have, like you said, a lot of those places in those areas, they can't even manage their day to day trash, yet we're sending all of this stuff there don't we need to start reshoring or friendshoring our recycling a little bit, and and thinking about our infrastructure here? And I don't, I'm not talking about, nascent technologies like, like perfect clean pyrolysis, or turning it back into its monomers and that type. I'm talking about just simple collecting it at source and economically being able to sort it and get it to, like you said, the global north, who wants that supply chain, but they can't get it because the supply chain, that raw material that was sitting right next to them, was shipped to Jakarta.
Right.
Right?
Well, you hit on many things that I would love to talk about because there's a lot of angles there that most people don't digest. And I'm not picking at you, but you brought it up, so I'm going to expose some of these things.
Yeah,
Um,
please do.
the first problem is the wages. Wages in the West too high. If we're not willing to pay workers proper wage to do the right things, which is collecting and recovering and recycling, and no one in the West really wants to do that kind of work, the whole thing with recycling is basically wage arbitrage into countries where they have economies of scale and lower cost, partly because the waste management system, going back to what we said at the beginning, are outdated and they're not correct in the way they gather plastic from the source at the beginning. So the costs are higher to unscramble the omelet. So we should remember that countries don't dump waste, but a contract between a buyer and a seller is what happens when you trade plastic meant for recycling. So there has to be a
Yeah,
seller at one end and a buyer at the other. It's not a country dumping on a country. The
right.
problem where this really propagated, which many people might not know, is that in China, when they banned the import of plastic in 2018, the reason is because China was growing so fast in the last 10 years before COVID. The manufacturing sector wanted plastic; they needed that, and the market was higher in China to buy a container of mixed plastic material rather than recycle it in California. I know one of the top optical recycling plants in California in the US that was trying to set up, and he couldn't get feedstock in the Bay
Mm,
Area because it was getting shipped to China because they were paying $50 more a ton because they were willing to pay for it. But what happened
yeah.
is all these rogue entrepreneurs in China would buy its containers, send it to their house, have a picking party on the weekend and sort through all the good things and maybe pick out 60 or 80% of the good material, and the other 20 maybe went to the river or got burned, and China couldn't
Ooh,
control this kind of import of the users were not officiated, they were not able to be enforced. That's what caused this, and that sent a shudder through the world. But going to your point on the Asian, so the Asian pollution really is not because the West or someone was sending, contracted products to them. Remember that if a buyer buys 20 containers of material, he's spending money to buy
yeah,
that stuff. He wants it
sure.
to go into a factory and turn into a pellet or a new recycled content. He's not going to just buy 20 containers and dump it in the river. The real reason those metrics were quite skewed, and finally the person who did that study admitted that they were wrong, which we called out right when we heard the study. The reason is because they use a metric of population within 50 kilometers, just say 50 miles, of the shoreline of these countries. You take the waste profile of the entire country and the mismanaged waste, which is the number that is known to be lost, burned, or in the water, not recycled and not landfilled. And you divide that by the population. Well, it just so happens that China, Philippines, Indonesia, these countries have the biggest populations of people on the coastline within 50 kilometers. They also have big rains and big storms. And so the local mismanagement, because they don't have the recycling capacity, they don't have the money. This goes back into the need for global circularity and, you
Right.
know, um, their numbers got skewed because they have such high populations near the ocean. And
Okay.
that what the it's okay. It put focus on Asia, and Asia does have these issues, but it took the focus away from Africa, India, Latin America, and many other countries that have the same problem. They just don't have the population, so the number didn't come out. Okay, U.S. has a problem, but we have also
Yeah.
huge amount of space, and we have plenty of landfill space, and it's cheap to ship it across the state and put it in a different hole. And this goes back to your point of onshoring, huge opportunities to rejig the system and create jobs and create innovation and new materials and secondary, third materials that are mixes, maybe not 100% recycled, but they're mixes of virgin and recycled that really increase the demand of and the pull factor that's needed to absorb these secondary materials into new products or values, whatever that end result is.
Gotcha. So and that's excellent. I thank you for that explanation because I look at those numbers and it was always confusing to me as to why we're sending all of this plastic across the world and then importing recycled plastics. We import a tons of recycled plastics when we've sent it away to go get recycled, right? I mean,
Right. Yes.
so the supply
It's just
chains are
because we're not
broken, but
willing to pay. But the
we're
same
not
thing
willing to
happened with
pay
our
for it. Yeah,
manufacturing. Wall Street says, "Oh, we want margins and go make the products in some other country and then bring them back and sell them to the
yeah,
Americans." And sorry, now there's no manufacturing in the U.S.
yeah.
We did it to
The
ourselves.
financial institutions.
Yeah. Well,
It's that
everyone
demand. I mean, I had a buddy who would say
demand
if
for
the
money.
financial institutions made a car, it would go from 0 to 1,000 in a quarter mile and explode at the end.
Right.
That would be it.
But we got to, have to have some perspective here. So yeah,
Yeah, no, that's excellent stuff. So tell me more about the alliance. Do you guys get into new technologies, or is it really the grassroots efforts, or do you guys play in the new technologies of what to actually do with some of the plastics
yeah,
at the end?
certainly. That
I mean,
that's what
I
plastic.
love everything that you said, but you didn't bring up any of that technology and that type of stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what plasticity was all about. Our conference, we had that in 13 global cities. It was a B2B conference. It wasn't about CSR. It wasn't about marketing new products. It was purely about solutions and log jams and how do you get the recovery better? How do you get the feedstock better? But also, what does it become? Does it become the concrete? Does it become the asphalt? How can this be the best thing instead of one that's, sounds like a scam? And you've got to look through these different things, your pyrolysis. There's many ways you could do things with fiber cups that are plastic lined. You don't have to separate the plastic and then separate the fiber. You could make things by high compression and make amazing paneling and decorative material for kitchen tabletops, waterproof and all kind of things. All the technology is kind of out there, it's just not deployed. One of the reasons is a lot of the entrepreneurs who are having the great things, they don't get the money, and they also often get mired in regulatory issues, particularly in the US and maybe Europe, trying to get approval to get their machines to even run and get shown and get proven. And the last thing they're thinking about is exporting their good technology to 20 other countries who need it. So many of the stuff is there, but it's not being seen, used, propagated, and expanded. So we do try to do that and help companies that have good things. One of the great ones is a company called CRDC out of Costa Rica. They have a product Resonate, and it makes mixed dirty plastic, and they're doing it in South Africa also. That mixed dirty plastic makes concrete harder, lighter, insulated, and you're making a high value product, which is concrete, in a green way. Concrete doesn't have many green stories, sequestering a huge problem of the world, which is mixed dirty plastic that no one's going to ever be able to recycle through normal mechanical recycling. And so, a great factoid is if you took all of the plastic in the world every year made, which is 400 million tons, plus or minus, and you threw all of that in the world's concrete demand every year, it would only be 3%. So
Wow.
imagine how you could sequester every single piece of our problem of plastic into a greener construction product that we all need anyway. This is the kind of things that are positive and interesting to be looking at.
No, Doug, that's amazing. There's a lot of things going on here, and from the global alert, which seems like people would want to get involved with that, right? I mean, you can use that virtually anywhere. I could use that in Tennessee, couldn't
You
I?
can use it in any creek or river in the world. The
Okay.
challenge, and you alluded to it, I didn't answer because I forgot, which was we provide the platform, but it's up to the local stakeholders to make the magic recipe of putting people together. If you put one plus, we always say if you get the right mix, 1 + 1 + 1 equals 8, and you get the real snowball moving. But if you don't get the 1 + 1 + 1, then it doesn't work. So a kid, you could get a high school group or even a middle school to report on a creek and a river, but and that data with photos and GPS is probably more than the municipality has today. So 3 kids could go do that from a boat or a bike or a jogging path. And then you need to make sure that someone's looking at those numbers. Is it the government? Is it some NGO helping them? Is it a university? Is it a corporate who decided to adopt a river, adopt a creek? But if so, we don't have the access to say when there's an alert and a hotspot that we connect all the municipalities in the world to that thing. It's up to the local community to make that mix happen. But when you do that,
Yeah.
then you use this tool and say, hey, let's use this. Now we can take metrics every week. Every week they pull out from the boom and the net. You can say how many man hours there were, how many kilos or pounds there were, how many bags. Then you start getting metrics on seasonality, on total amount removed. This is very valuable for the government or any NGO or stakeholder. But and it's all can be done on our app. You just need to People just need to know to put this together and use it in their space.
Yeah, no, that's tremendous, and I love that explanation, and thank you for that because that's exactly it. It is the platform to be able to do this, and you got to get that network together. Because I'm just thinking in my mind about a network I already know of that
Well, that
isn't connected and could be connected in certain that way, including my own company, to get involved in these type of things. It's really
exactly.
cool.
This is very good for company engagement, employee engagement. Imagine if your corporate has 50 offices around the world with 80,000 people, and you say, "Hey, employees, when you go out on the weekend having a picnic or doing something with your kids and your family, and you see trash hot spots near the water, take some pictures and put it up." But you then need to link that with someone else in the community who can take action and use it. So what we've done is an app that the whole world can use. Often you get a university or a city. We tried to do a project with Vietnam to provide this service for the whole country, and they said, "Oh, this is great, but we can do it ourselves." And so they went off and tried to do it on their own, and I don't think it ever worked. But in Indonesia, Lombok had the same thing, and we came along 6 months ago, and they said, "Oh, that's great because we made an app, for different municipal issues, and one of them was including pollution, 3 or 4 years ago. But of course, it didn't get funded, doesn't get updated, doesn't work anymore, and it doesn't help the next." Uh, Province or state either because they make it usually for their own territory. So then you have all this repetitive attempts to create something, which is a bit like trying to create a circular economy for plastic in every single country. It's repetitive, um, inefficient use of resources. And so our app at least hopefully lets anyone use it all around the world on the same system. And now that people are starting to talk about rivers, we launched this 8 years ago, but now that the river and creek angle is more important, maybe we can get a bit more traction with it. So working with a group like you and your company is a great network to set some case studies going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I see a ton of value in there, and hopefully other people do too. So, Doug, who should be contacting you, and should they be contacting you? Why should they be and where should they be contacting you?
Well,
They're going to read this, dude.
it
You're
depends.
going to just be answering phone calls from now on the rest of your life after this.
Well, I've lived in Asia. I'm from California, but I lived in Asia for 30 years. I worked here, and we can make, like I said, a bigger impact in developing countries. I don't do that. We don't do that much in the US. We do a bit, but it's more higher end. But there's no reason why our programs could be used anywhere. I mean, a global alert, I wouldn't, I've talked to people in Canada and I said, it'll work in Canada, but you guys don't really have that much trash coming down your rivers from the nice forests that you have. So it's not really worth the effort of trying to chase a couple bottles. This is for macro large areas, 100 yards, 50 yards, 20 yards of stuff in a spot. Not one candy wrapper. We vet all the photos before they go live, so that they're all relevant to the stakeholders, but we're doing work in these other countries, and we always need support and sponsorship because none of the governments have the funding. And what we're trying to do is show examples where these case studies work in a jurisdictional manner. They work through a whole village, an entire community, because we can go in where they have nothing and create a new set of solutions and show how this can work. And then now it infects the next village and the next one, and they want to be part of it. And then you start getting closer to the municipalities and the city centers, and then that's down the road, but that's where this all can go. And so anyone who's got leads and connections that could use our Uncle Roo play, that can be a theater group, a school group, a youth group. We've got the Global Alert. We have all kinds of tools. Our plastic disclosure project, which is the footprinting methodology, can be used by governments, municipalities, but really corporates. Whether you're a big company or a small company, universities. UC Berkeley was the first in the world as a campus. It was about 8 years ago they used it, and now they have one of the leading plastic policies on campus of a university, because it got them into this focus of, wow, what do I really do? What do I have? Where does this stuff go? How much do we recover? How can we do it better? Um, so we have a bit of everything for a lot of different groups. So it depends, if you're a corporate or a philanthropy, a donor, a village head, or those people, then yeah, it's a global
Excellent,
problem.
excellent stuff. Oceanrecov.org is where they go, right?
Oceanrecover.org is our mothership, and all the projects you mentioned, the Waterfalling Festival, our Inland Ocean Festival, all these are sub projects within Ocean Recovery Alliance. And in a way, we're environmental entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur, but I just don't make products. I make we make programs to engage some stakeholder, young or old, big or small, on the topic to get them, thinking about it or solving something. But not selling a product means you can't make money from it. So we always need a sponsor, a donor, a partner, a collaborator, something like that every single time we invent a new program.
Of course, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So go to oceanrecov.org and help out Doug and what he's doing there. Doug, it's awesome stuff. We've blown through 50, almost 55 minutes, and it's been really, really interesting. I've learned a lot, and you've corrected some of my thought processes that were out there. But hey, we're kindred spirits, man. We need to
Yeah,
go make a difference, and we need to educate people and people to understand. Even in Tennessee or Chattanooga or LA or whatever, you don't have to be in Cambodia to make a difference,
right,
right?
right.
You can make
Anywhere.
that difference. You can
Have
make that
pride.
difference.
Just pick it up. Have pride. Just pick it up.
Yeah,
That's
just
what we
pick it up
tell
or
people. Pick it
don't.
up.
Yeah,
When you start picking
yeah.
something up, that if people look at you like you're crazy, why are you doing that? Someone else is supposed to do that. There's a street sweeper. But if a kid picks something up everyone starts looking, and then they think, maybe I should do that too when I'm walking around.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, they do. Yeah, make it cool to be, to pick up
Exactly.
trash and not litter and recycle
And
is.
that's where we
I'm
need a
with you 100.
PR media company to take on a global push for that kind of idea. It would be great.
Absolutely. So one last question: who won the Game 5 of the World Series? Did the Rangers pull it off, or was it Arizona? Since you're in the
I
future.
have no idea because we don't play
Oh.
baseball in Hong Kong. Sorry, didn't even know it was happening.
Oh,
I watch the
gotcha,
rugby,
rats.
but I don't follow the baseball. Sorry about that.
I should have given
I'm a
you. I
water
should have given you a
person.
list of late. That's awesome, Doug. Thank you very much for being on the show, man. We're gonna have to catch up again soon, maybe after the conference there in Africa. But I'm gonna get
Yeah,
you. I'm gonna get the information of Oliver Nuds over to you. So hopefully you guys can hook up at that
that'd be
conference because
great.
he's doing a lot of really good work down there in South Africa.
Great. Thank you for that. Nice to be on your show.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. That's been the Sustainiacs. We'll see you again next time. Be good.
Thanks, Mike.